So, what if I told you that the secret to unlocking your absolute ultimate potential isn't just about, trying harder, but actually brainwashing yourself? I know, that word carries a ton of baggage, but today we're going to look at it through a completely different lens. We are talking about the deliberate, intentional rewiring of your own mind for positive change.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're exploring the fascinating mechanics of ethical influence and cognitive rewiring. We're going to break down exactly how influence actually works, both when it's used on you by others and when you strategically use it on yourself. By the end of our time together, you'll have a clear scientific framework for taking total control of your daily habits.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, the ethics of influence. Second, spotting the dopamine crash. Third, brainwashing yourself for good. Fourth, the FEAR model. And finally, achieving synaptic plasticity. Let's just jump right in.
Section 1. The ethics of influence in understanding intent.
So the very first thing we need to understand is that psychological techniques are, at their core, totally morally neutral. They're just tools, right? I mean, a hammer can build a house or can break a window. Influence works exactly the same way. It's entirely the user's intent that determines its ethical standing. To navigate this, we have the ethical litmus test. It states, if the other person could know your true intentions for them and would be okay with them, the act is likely ethical. This is absolutely crucial to keep in mind. Whether you're in sales, leadership, or literally just having an everyday conversation, if your hidden intent were suddenly broadcast on a loudspeaker, will the other person feel respected or manipulated? If they be okay with it, well, you're in the clear.
Section 2. Spotting the dopamine crash and the chemistry of manipulation.
Now, what's really interesting here is that when someone's intentions fail that ethical litmus test we just talked about, it actually shows up in your brain chemistry. Notice the stark difference between these two states. If you've ever interacted with someone where you felt absolutely amazing during the conversation, but the literal second they walked away, you felt incredibly drained or just bad about yourself, yeah, you likely experienced a dopamine crash. This happens when someone is essentially weaponizing your brain chemistry, creating these intense, completely unsustainable spikes of validation. On the flip side, a healthy connection is built on oxytocin. That leaves you with a warm, grounded feeling that fades slowly and positively. So pay close attention to how you feel when an interaction is over. Your neurochemistry is literally trying to warn you.
To put that into perspective with a real-world example, consider a super common dating red flag, a man who has no friends that live locally. Now, why is this a red flag? Well, because an inability to maintain close, regular, face-to-face relationships can actually indicate a struggle for that healthy, oxytocin-based connection we just discussed. It's a massive behavioral clue that someone might rely way more on superficial, dopamine-driven interactions rather than deeply rooted actual bonds.
Section 3. Brainwashing yourself for good. The pivot.
Section 4. The FEAR model explained and structuring habit.
Okay, so we've talked a bit about how influence works externally between people. But what happens when you turn these mechanisms inward? The goal here is to move from a temporary state of white-knuckled discipline, which, let's be honest, always runs out, to a deeply ingrained automatic habit. So the crucial point is, to do that, we use a specific four-step sequence, FEAR. It stands for focus, emotion, agitation, and repetition. By moving through these stages, you're essentially hacking your own operating system. You are ethically applying the principles of brainwashing to yourself to create lasting, positive change. Let's break down each step.
Step 1 is focus. Our brains are incredibly efficient, which means they absolutely love running on autopilot. To rewrite a program, you first have to wake the brain up. You do this by disrupting everyday patterns to force your brain to pay attention. For instance, drive a completely new route to work. Or, hey, tomorrow morning, try brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand. It feels intensely awkward, right? Good. That awkwardness is your brain being forced out of autopilot and into an active state of focus. You're basically priming the canvas. Moving on to step 2, emotion. Now, this isn't just about feeling happy or sad. It's about making rapid, significant disruptions to your physical environment to trigger a psychological shift. Move the furniture in your living room around. Repaint a wall. Change up the pictures on your desk. You see, our environments actually hold the emotional triggers for our old habits. By radically altering the physical space around you, you create the emotional disruption that's necessary to break those old psychological ties and make room for the new ones.
Step 3 is agitation. Honestly, this is perhaps the most counterintuitive part of the whole model. You need to intentionally agitate your system. A great example of this is setting your alarm 30 minutes earlier than usual. Why would you do that? Because you're leveraging mild physical and mental stress, like slight sleep deprivation, while forming new habits. A comfortable, perfectly rested brain, it doesn't feel any strong urgency to adapt. A slightly agitated system, however, is way more malleable and ready to absorb new programming.
And finally, step 4, repetition. This is the glue that holds the entire model together. You've focused your brain, you've disrupted your emotional environment, you've agitated your system. Now, you must continue the new behavior with relentless consistency. Without repetition, those first 3 steps are really just a temporary shock to the system. Repetition is what actually signals to your brain that, hey, this isn't just a drill, this is our new normal.
Section 5. Achieving synaptic plasticity and our neuroscience goal.
And this brilliantly illustrates the biological finish line of the entire FER process. Synaptic plasticity is the encouragement of neurons that don't normally communicate to form new, strong connections. Think of it kind of like walking through a really dense forest. That very first time is incredibly difficult. You're hacking away, pushing branches out of the way. That's the discipline phase. But if you walk that exact same path every single day, eventually it becomes a paved highway. The whole brainwashing phase officially ends when this synaptic plasticity is achieved. The new behavior no longer requires any conscious force. It's just become an automatic, effortless habit.
So I want to leave you with this final, really important question to think about. Are your current habits a result of conscious choice or just accidental programming? Because as we've seen today, your brain is constantly being wired, either by the external influence of others, your environments, or by your own intentional design. You now have the mechanics and the FEAR model in your toolkit. It is time to take the wheel. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. What new mental highway are you going to start paving tomorrow?